He left the light on every single night. He never told anyone why, until the night it mattered more than he ever expected. Rosa Mendez left her third job of the day at 11:45 every night. The bus that could get her home stopped running at 11. She had done the math more times than she could count. The fare for a late ride share versus the cost of groceries for the week. Groceries always won, so she walked. 2 hours, through three neighborhoods, past a closed pharmacy, a boarded-up laundromat, and a long stretch of road with no streetlights at all. The part she didn't like to think about too much. She was 28 years old. She cleaned offices until 3 in the afternoon. She worked a register at a gas station until 9. She picked up overnight stocking shifts at a grocery store twice a week when she could get them. Nobody had ever asked her how she did it. She had stopped expecting them to. There was one part of the walk she always slowed down for, without meaning to. A diner, small, old-fashioned, the kind of place with a hand-painted sign and a bell over the door that probably still worked, though she had never gone in to find out. It was always lit, every single night, warm yellow light spilling out onto the sidewalk like something from a memory she didn't quite have. An old man worked behind the counter most nights. She had seen him through the window dozens of times, wiping down the same counter, refilling the same napkin dispensers. Alone in a diner with no customers, at midnight, in a neighborhood where nothing else stayed open past 9. She had never gone inside. She told herself it was because she didn't have time. That was true. It was also not the only reason. She had passed that diner maybe 300 times. She had never once gone inside, but someone inside had been watching her pass every single one of them. She first noticed the cup on a Tuesday in October. It was sitting on the counter near the window, close enough to the glass that she could see it clearly from the sidewalk. Steam still rising from it, untouched. She thought nothing of it. A customer, she assumed. Someone who had stepped away for a moment. But there was never anyone else inside. She saw it again the next night, and the night after that, always in the same spot, always around the same time, 11:50 give or take, exactly when she passed. She started to notice other things too. The old man, she still did not know his name, always seemed to be looking toward the door around that time, not waiting exactly, just aware. The way someone is aware of a clock ticking even when they are not looking directly at it. One night it rained harder than usual. She walked faster, head down, soaked through within the first 20 minutes. When she passed the diner, the cup was there, same as always. But this time there was something else next to it, a small folded paper napkin. She did not stop to look closer. She told herself it was none of her business. She told herself a lot of things on those walks to keep her feet moving when her body wanted to stop. But she carried the image of that cup home with her that night. And for the first time in months, she found herself wondering about a stranger's life instead of only worrying about her own. She didn't know it yet, but that cup wasn't for a customer who never came. It was for her. It had always been for her. It happened on a Thursday, 3 weeks after she first noticed the cup. Rosa was 20 minutes into her walk, past the boarded-up laundromat, when she heard footsteps behind her that weren't there a moment ago. She didn't turn around. She had learned that much walking home alone for 2 years. You don't turn around. You change your pace. You watch the reflections in storefront windows instead. The footsteps matched her pace exactly. She sped up. They sped up. Her phone was in her pocket, but service on this stretch of road was unreliable at best, and she knew it. She had checked before, more than once, for exactly this reason. The dark stretch of road with no streetlights was still 4 minutes ahead. She did the math the way she did math for everything else in her life, fast and without panic, because panic was a luxury she had never been able to afford. 4 minutes to the dark stretch, 2 minutes to the diner. She crossed the street without breaking stride and walked straight toward the only light still on for blocks. The bell over the door rang for the first time in the months she had been passing it. The old man looked up. He did not ask what was wrong. He did not look past her out the window to see if anyone was there. He simply walked to the door, turned the lock with a small, quiet click, and flipped the sign hanging in the window from open to closed. Then he said the only thing he said to her that entire night. "Sit wherever you like, I just put on a fresh pot." Rosa sat at the counter. Her hands were shaking. She did not tell him why. He did not ask. He set a plate in front of her a few minutes later. Eggs, toast, the kind of meal that takes no time to make and somehow takes a lifetime to learn how to make well. She had not ordered anything. "On the house," he said before she could speak. "Always is this time of night." She ate in silence. He wiped down a counter that was already clean. Outside, the street stayed empty. Whoever had been behind her was gone. But for the first time in 2 years of walking home alone in the dark, Rosa Mendez did not feel alone. She went back the very next night, not because she was followed again, because for the first time in 2 years, someone had made her feel safe without being asked to, and she needed to know why. She went back the next night, and the night after that, not because she planned to, not because she made any decision she could point to and explain. Her feet simply slowed down at that stretch of road the way they always had, and this time, instead of walking past, she pushed open the door. The bell rang. The old man looked up from the counter. He did not look surprised. That, more than anything, was what got her. She sat at the same stool she had used that first night. He set a cup down without asking. The same disposable cup, the same steam rising from it, the same quiet placement that made it feel like something deliberate rather than something casual. She wrapped both hands around it. "I never introduced myself," she said. "No," he agreed. "Rosa," she said. "Frank," he said. And that was that. Two people exchanging names the way two people do when they have already decided to trust each other, and the names are just a formality. She came back 4 nights in a row before she finally asked the question she had been carrying since the first night. She waited until he was wiping down the counter that was always already clean, and she said it as plainly as she could. "Frank, why do you stay open this late?" He kept wiping the counter. "Habit," he said. "That's not an answer," she said. He stopped wiping. He looked at her for a long moment, the way someone looks at you when they are deciding how much of themselves to give away and how much to keep. "No," he said quietly. "I suppose it's not." He picked up the cloth again. "Some habits," he said, "start as something else, and then they just become what you do. And after a while, you stop asking yourself why." Rosa looked at the photograph on the wall. She had noticed it from the first night. A young woman, maybe 23, 24, dark hair, laughing at something outside the frame. "Who is she?" Rosa asked. Frank followed her gaze to the photograph. He was quiet for a long time. "Someone who should have made it home," he said. He did not explain further. Rosa did not push. She finished her coffee, set the cup down, said good night, and walked the rest of the way home in the rain, thinking about a photograph and a man who answered a question without answering it. What it meant that he had said should have and not did not. She knew what she needed to do. She had known since the moment Frank said those 7 words. She needed to find out who was in that photograph and why 18 years later Frank was still leaving the light on. She started at the library. It was a Saturday morning, her only morning without a shift, and she sat at a public computer in the corner of the reference section with a coffee she had bought from a gas station 2 blocks away and a determination she could not entirely explain. She typed Frank's name first. Nothing useful. A few social media profiles that were clearly not him. A mention in a local business directory. The diner's name, Frank's Place, listed as permanently closed on 3 separate review websites, which struck her as strange given that she had been sitting at its counter 4 nights in a row. She searched the diner's address instead. That gave her something. An old Yelp listing. Reviews going back 11 years. The most recent one, dated 8 years ago, read, "Still open somehow, never busy, food is good, owner seems sad." 1 star below that, dated the same week, "Went in at midnight on a Tuesday, just needed somewhere to sit. The old man never asked me to leave." 5 stars. She sat back. Midnight on a Tuesday. She scrolled further. The older reviews mentioned a woman who used to work there. A daughter, someone assumed, though nobody knew for certain. Good with names. Always remembered your order. Laughed at everything. Rosa stared at the screen. She typed, "Missing woman, the diner's neighborhood, the years that felt right." The third result stopped her completely. A brief article. Local paper. 18 years old. A young woman, 23, had gone missing after her night shift. She had been a nursing assistant at a clinic 4 blocks from the diner. She had called her father from outside the clinic at 11:45 to say she was on her way home. She never arrived. She was never found. Her name was Clara, and in the small photograph attached to the article, the one her father had provided to the newspaper, the one taken at some birthday or holiday that Rosa could not identify, she was laughing at something outside the frame, the same way she was laughing in the photograph on Frank's wall. Rosa closed the browser. She sat very still in the library corner for a long time. Outside the window, the morning was bright and ordinary. Inside her chest, something had shifted permanently. She understood now. The cup on the counter, the light that never went out, the diner that every website said was closed but somehow never was. Frank was not keeping a business open. He was keeping a promise. To every woman who walked home alone after 11:45. Because his daughter had done the same thing, and nobody had left a light on for her. Rosa knew the truth now, but knowing and doing something with it were 2 different things. She could walk into that diner tomorrow night and say nothing. Pretend she had never searched, never found the article, never learned Clara's name. Or she could do something she had never done in 2 years of keeping her head down and her feet moving. She could show up for someone else. She walked in at 11:50 the next night, same as always, except this time she did not sit down. Frank looked up from the counter. He read something in her face immediately, the way people who have carried grief for a long time learn to recognize it in others without being told. "You found something," he said. It was not a question. Rosa did not answer right away. She stood at the counter and looked at the photograph on the wall. at Clara laughing at something outside the frame, at the girl who had called her father at 11:45 on a Friday night 18 years ago and never made it home. "Clara," Rosa said. Frank set down the cloth he was holding, very slowly, the way you set something down when your hands need something to do and there is nothing left to do with them. "She was 23, he said. "I know," Rosa said. "She worked nights, same as you." "I know. She used to call me when she left the clinic, every single night. So I knew she was on her way." He paused. "One night she called, and then she didn't come home." The diner was completely silent. Rosa did not move. "I drove the route she would have walked," Frank said, "that same night, and the night after, and the night after that, looking for, I don't know what I was looking for. Something, some reason." He looked at the counter. "I passed this building every time. It was a hardware store back then, closed at 6, dark at night. I kept thinking, if there had been a light on, if there had been somewhere to go, if someone had just been here." He stopped. "So you bought it," Rosa said quietly. "Took me 3 years to save enough, another 2 to get the license. By the time I opened, I was 51 years old, and I had no idea how to run a diner." He almost smiled. "Still don't, if I'm honest." Rosa looked at him, at this man who had spent 18 years running a diner that every review website listed as closed, who had never advertised, never tried to fill the seats, who had simply turned on a light every night at 11 and kept it on until morning. Not for customers, for daughters, for women with nowhere to go and 2 hours still to walk. For Rosa. "You've been doing this for 18 years, she said. "Yes," he said, "for her." Frank looked at the photograph. "For her," he said, "and for whoever needed it." He picked up the cloth again. "I can't bring her home," he said quietly. "I figured out a long time ago that I couldn't do that. But I could make sure the light was on, in case someone else's daughter needed it." Rosa felt something give way inside her chest. Not breaking, something else. The feeling of a door opening in a room you forgot existed. She sat down at the counter. Frank set a fresh cup in front of her. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Outside, the rain fell steadily on the empty street. The light stayed on, the way it always had, the way it always would. Rosa went home that night knowing something she had not known that morning, that the world contained people like Frank, people who turned their worst moment into something that protected strangers, people who kept the light on, not because anyone asked them to, but because nobody had. She slept better that night than she had in 2 years, and when she woke up, she knew exactly what she needed to do. She did not tell anyone the full story, not right away. She had learned something from Frank without him ever saying it directly, that some things lose their power when you explain them too much, that the right thing done quietly is worth more than the right thing announced. So she did not announce anything. She simply started talking. At the office cleaning job, during the 15-minute break, she usually spent alone in the supply closet, eating whatever she had packed and not thinking about the walk home. She mentioned the diner to a woman named Deb. 52 years old, worked the same shift, lived 4 blocks past Rosa in the same direction. "There's a place on Carver Street," Rosa said. "Old diner, open late, good coffee, no questions asked. You should know about it. Deb looked at her. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Rosa thought about Frank, about Clara, about a light that had been on for 18 years for no reason anyone could see from the outside. Because someone told me once, Rosa said, that it helps to know where the lights are. Deb did not ask anything else. But the following Tuesday, she knocked on the diner door at 11:55. Frank let her in without a word, set a cup on the counter, did not ask her name. At the gas station, Rosa told a woman named Precious, who worked the closing shift and lived alone, and had mentioned once in passing that she did not like the walk to the bus stop after dark. At the grocery store, she told two women on the overnight stocking crew. She did not make it a campaign. She did not make it anything. She just told people who needed to know. The way someone might pass on the location of a shelter before a storm. Matter-of-factly, without drama. Because that was how Frank had done it. And she had learned from the best. Within 3 weeks, Frank's place had 6 regulars. None of them had found it through a search engine. None of them had seen an advertisement. Every single one of them had been told by a woman who walked home late at night and wanted to make sure another woman knew where the light was. Frank noticed. He did not say anything. He simply started leaving out more cups. 6 women now knew about the light. Frank had kept it on for 18 years for one reason. Now it was becoming something he never planned for. Something he never allowed himself to hope for. A reason that was bigger than grief. A reason that was still growing. November came, then December. The kind of winter that arrives without announcement and stays longer than anyone planned for. Rosa's third job cut her hours in the second week of November. She picked up 2 extra shifts at the gas station to compensate and added a Saturday morning cleaning job at a dental office that paid $11 an hour and smelled like antiseptic and mint. She was more tired than she had ever been, but she was not alone. That was new. Frank's place had become something that nobody had named and nobody needed to name. It was not a community center. It was not a support group. It was not anything that required a sign or a meeting time or a purpose stated out loud. It was just a diner, open late, with a man behind the counter who remembered how you took your coffee after the second time you came in, and who never asked where you were coming from or where you were going, and who had a photograph on the wall of a young woman laughing at something outside the frame. On the first Tuesday of December, Rosa arrived at 11:50 to find 3 other women already at the counter. Deb, Precious, a woman named June who Rosa had never met, but who Precious had told apparently, because June worked a double shift at a laundromat 4 blocks away and walked home alone at midnight and needed to know where the light was. Frank was behind the counter, 4 cups already set out. He had known they were coming. Or perhaps he had simply prepared for them the way he always prepared. Not because he was certain, but because he had decided a long time ago that preparation was an act of faith. Rosa sat down. Deb said something that made Precious laugh. June wrapped both hands around her cup the same way Rosa had wrapped hers the first night she came in. Frank wiped down the counter. For the first time in 18 years, the diner was not quiet. Rosa looked at Frank. He was looking at the photograph. Not with grief, not exactly, with something harder to name. The look of a man who has carried something heavy for so long that when the weight shifts, even slightly, even just for a moment, he does not quite know what to do with his hands. Rosa did not say anything. She did not need to. She just picked up her cup and stayed. There was one conversation still left to have. Rosa had been carrying it for 3 weeks, not because she did not know what to say, because she knew exactly what to say, and she needed Frank to be ready to hear it. She waited until the others had gone. It was a Thursday night in the third week of December. Deb had left first, pulling her coat tight against the cold, before pushing through the door with a small wave that had become routine now. The kind of wave that means see you next time rather than goodbye. Precious and June left together as they usually did, walking the first 6 blocks in the same direction before splitting off. Rosa stayed. Frank began his end-of-night routine, wiping the counter, turning off the display case light, rinsing the coffee pot that never fully emptied anymore. Rosa watched him. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He kept rinsing the pot. "You can ask," he said. "Do you think she knows?" Frank went still. Not the stillness of someone who did not understand the question. The stillness of someone who understood it completely and had been waiting 18 years for someone to ask it. He set the coffee pot down. He looked at the photograph. "I think," he said slowly, "that she would have thought it was too much. She was practical like that. She would have said, 'Dad, you are running a diner at a loss for 18 years. This is insane. Go home, get some sleep.'" He paused. She would have been right. Rosa did not say anything. "But I also think," Frank said, "that somewhere in between telling me I was crazy and making me eat something because I never remembered to eat, she would have understood. She was like that too. Both things at once." He was quiet for a moment. "She would have liked you," he said. Rosa felt something catch in her throat. "You don't know that," she said. "No," Frank said. "But I know she liked people who kept moving when it would have been easier to stop. She was one of those people." He looked at the photograph again. "Still is, I think, in whatever way that's possible." The diner was very quiet. Outside, the rain had stopped. For the first time in weeks, the street was dry. "Frank," Rosa said. "She made it home, Frank." Frank looked at her. "Not the way either of you planned," Rosa said. "Not the way anyone would have chosen. But she made it home. This place, what you built, this is where she came. This is what she became." Rosa looked at the photograph. "She is in every cup you have ever set on that counter. She is in every woman who has walked through that door. She is in me coming back every night for 3 months when I had no reason to trust anything." Frank said nothing. His jaw moved slightly, the way a person's jaw moves when they are holding something in that is too large to let out in a public place, even when the public place is empty. "She made it home, Frank," Rosa said quietly. "She just took 18 years to get here, and she brought all of us with her." Frank stood behind the counter of his empty diner on a Thursday night in December, in the neighborhood where his daughter had walked home alone. And for the first time in 18 years, he let himself believe it. Rosa did not leave right away. She sat at the counter until Frank had finished closing up. Then she walked home. 2 hours, through 3 neighborhoods, in the cold December air. Without fear, for the first time ever. Is there a light left on for you right now? And have you ever walked toward it on purpose? And is there someone walking past your light right now who needs you to leave it on a little longer?